Great to see you here again. My name is Luc de Kuster, founder of the Kuster Academy. And in this video, we're going to talk about the origin of projects and how we select projects. What are the principles of project selection? But before we continue, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. So let's have a look at the first item. Where do projects come from? Now, projects or programs can have different origins. But when we look deeper, projects typically originate from suggestions done by people, new business developments, and when you look at the financial statements, projects are very important for the growth of business. We have strategic projects, for example, legal requirements that have to be adjusted to keep on doing the business, process improvements, where we have certain processes that are ongoing, but we want to improve them. We want to have higher output, better quality, less scrap, and things like that. We can look at contracts. So when we were working in AT&T, our sales department made a contract with some customer, and based on that, there was a contract, and we had to complete the work that was described in the contract, but in most cases in the statement of work. Now, the content may be described in a business case, in certain cases, or in a statement of work, depending on the origin of the project. When we look at the suggestions, the new business developments, the legal requirements, the project improvements, these are typically done based on a business case, while with a contract we have a statement of work describing what did we agree to complete for the customer. How do we select projects? Well, there are many projects that we can have. Now, we look at the performance of the company, we look at strategic development. These are very important parameters to consider. Now, the thing is, there may be a lot of projects, but the budget, the money available is limited, and the management must make those decisions. What will be the projects that we will be accepting for the next period, for example, for our next financial year? Now, we can have those decisions on organizational level, divisional and departmental levels, and each of those have their translation, have their interpretation of the strategy of the company, and they have to use that, they will use that to define how they will in fact align their divisions or departments to follow the strategy of the company, and they will select the projects that are important for them. Now, the decisions do not only relate to cost, but there is also the element of risk and the probability to be successful. Let's first have a look at the risk factors and project selection. Risk is very important, and we have to see what is the attitude towards risks of the company. How does the company deal with risk? Are we in an environment that likes to deal with risk or not? We have to see, and that determines also the decisions that are going to be made, what projects will be selected. Now, whatever decision, whatever risk level you accept, you always have to, or whatever your attitude is towards risk, you always have to define a maximum risk level. And the risk level relates, of course, to project success. What are the things that can go wrong when you do your project? Are there opportunities? Are there risk events? Don't forget, in project management, risk is both opportunity and threats. So we have to see what we can determine. We have to estimate the risk level of the project and then verify if it's acceptable for us, yes or no. Now, when we look at projects with higher risk levels, it means that you will require a higher return and profit level. So it's very important to take that into account when you will be looking at the return on investment parameters, that the risk element is integrated in those parameters, in the risk, in the levels, in the minimum values that you want to have related to financial parameters. Now, like I said, the risk level that you accept has an effect on the financial evaluation, and you have to take it into account when you're creating the different financial parameters that will be used to evaluate the project. Let's have a look at those financial parameters. There are many financial parameters that exist, and we looked at some of them in the course. We kept it to rather simple parameters. For some they may be complex, but they're still quite easy to calculate and to interpret. Now you have to see what's happening in your organization with the financial department, what are the parameters they are using, and how it can be integrated in your project. Now, typically I considered during the courses the following parameters, and it's a good start, and of course their evaluation is very important. The payback time, the PBT, should be less or equal than a certain maximum duration, for example 3 years. It means that the invested money will be earned back in 3 years or less. The net present value is basically the profit you're going to make when you're doing a project, and it's logical that the profit should be positive, so the net present value should be positive. Then the last parameter is what we call the internal rate of return, or the yield of the investment. It's a percentage, and we have to compare this with the weighted average cost of capital, or the required rate of return. RRR is basically the WACC plus an extra percent for risk. Now the WACC is the weighted average cost of capital, is what you as a company pay for using the money. So when you do a project, the return has to be, of course, higher than the amount, the percentage that you pay to use the money. Let's have a look at what we call the return on investment policy. We have those different parameters, and what I proposed, what I suggested, is to use a combination of those financial parameters to evaluate the financial performance of the project. And what we have to do here, we have to see, for example, the payback time, the net present value, the internal rate of return. A project can be selected once all three parameters are within the acceptable range. And then, of course, we still have to continue with the different project, because we still may have too many projects. We may not have the necessary budget to look at all of those projects, but then we have different methods to evaluate and to identify the best projects available. A very interesting method is what we call the multi-criterion analysis, or the decision matrix. My teacher called it comparing apples with oranges. They're all fruits. And the multi-criterion analysis method, or the decision matrix, provide us with ways to create an evaluation of the different parameters. So we have the parameters that are important. What is the weight, the importance of the parameters, the maximum number of points every parameter can get. And then we have to do an evaluation. For every parameter, we give the different points. Now, the selected parameters, you don't have to have too many, and the weights have to be different. If the weights are all the same, then we don't have to do a weight, we don't have to calculate a weighted average. Now, when we look at the points, we calculate the weighted average of those points, and we see here three solutions: solution 1, 2, and 3, 6,900, 7,225 points, and 7,950 points. So solution 3 is the best solution, the highest points. And the next element, if we don't have the money as a part of the evaluation, we can also take the money divided by the number of points, and we see the cost per point. And this amount should be the smallest amount, so 36.4 gives us the lowest cost per point for solution 3. And this is what we can consider the most efficient solution. Now, what is the problem, or what can be the problem here? Solution 3 is the most expensive one, so you will have to do a lot of explaining why you should take solution 3, because people are typically driven or pushed to take the cheapest solution. And the cheapest solution is not always the cheapest solution. You have to do a thorough evaluation. So that was it for the decision making. How do we find projects? Where do we find them? How do we select them? What are the evaluations? Anyway, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and whenever we have a new project, YouTube will inform you about it. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next videos. Bye bye.